Well, good evening to everybody and welcome to international session of this particular webinar. Why I call international is that Sandeep is talking to us from Vienna. And hello. Hi Sandeep Kumar. And then we are very fortunate to have with us Madam Mehru Jaffer. And Rishabh, can we have Madam Mehru Jaffer also? And then we have a couple of important personalities who have joined us over here. I must say that we are quite fortunate that whatever the reason could have been, that this particular session could have is been able to, this particular session we are able to produce now and bring it over in this pandemic time, and at least we'll have some time and some sort of to ponder over and forget about, and then forget about our bad times or whatever the time we are going through now. Now, before I go any further, let me briefly introduce to you the Charge d'Affaires and the Deputy, the Charge d'Affaires, Mr. Matthias Radostich, who is with us. And welcome on board, Mr. Radostich. And because of his support, I must say that we have been able to produce this particular webinar. So may I request you, Mr. Radostich, to kindly take over and say a few words before we go for any further.
Okay. Thank you, Muniz-ji. I will be very short because there are obviously important people to speak. More important people to speak. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your participation. We were, as you know, all those who are in India know anyhow, we're in a very bad situation and in terms of COVID, and we had to go back to all virtual mode. We had some live performances during the months of February and March, but now we are back online, and I guess we'll stay online for quite some time. So we came up with this project on the occasion of the Europe Day, which will be celebrated soon. It's we wanted to show that both Austria and India have, first of all, strong links, stronger than you might think. Both have a very rich cultural heritage. And obviously, we also wanted to show some Indian personalities who have made actually a difference also in Austria. So here's a strong link, and we do have an Indian diaspora in Vienna, quite a sizable one, and one of the representatives has been is joining us today. So we're very happy to welcome Sandeep Kumar, who is an Austrian filmmaker because he's an Austrian national, but of Indian origin. We have to say that. Thank you, Mr. Kumar. We have Mrs. Mehru Jaffer, who is a renowned scholar, journalist, author, who has lived in Vienna for decades, I understand, who has taught in Vienna, so who is definitely an honorary Austrian, if not more. And we welcome, of course, Mr. Cybil Chatterjee, who will take over the kind of the moderation tonight, who is a National Film Critic Award winner and author on books on films. So with this short introduction, thank you, Muniz, for making this possible. In those difficult times, we have the first humanitarian flight coming in from Austria on Saturday to support the Indian government. So we are stuck in the middle of this operation as well. So thank you for making it possible. And I would like to hand over to you. And please let's start the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Radostich. I think so. When feast for ears is waiting and feast for eyes is waiting. We shouldn't waste time on words. Briefly, Mr. Saibal Chatterjee, old good friend of mine, has been introduced by Mr. Adostej, very eminent national awardee film critic, and also he has been the member of jury in International Film Festival and has done a big contribution in the world of celluloid. At the same time, he has authored so many books. We're really fortunate to have you, Cybil, today in the evening.
Thank you.
I mean, the best part is that you have two stalwarts whom we can really claim to be Austrians, and they will talk about their experience with you and how you explored them. So before we say anything, I mean, I also have a good friend of mine over here, Sushmita, sitting, who happens to be a sociologist. At the same time, she has been working on masculinity and gender in Indian dance and diaspora. So welcome on board, Smita. And now I give it over to Mr. Cybil Chatterjee. Cybil, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Manish. First of all, let me thank the Austrian Embassy and the Austrian Cultural Forum for giving me this opportunity to moderate this session. Of course, we are surrounded by gloom at the moment, and we are in terrible times, and anything that helps us take our minds off what's happening around us is welcome. So I think I'll dive straight into the questions. I mean, I have Sandeep Kumar, the writer, director, producer of MEHRUNISA, and also Mehru Jaffer, who's, as you said, is a scholar, writer, journalist, and also co-producer of MEHRUNISA. So the first question that I have is for Sandeep. Sandeep, you are based in Vienna, and you come to Lucknow to make a film. So is there a particular reason why you chose Lucknow? Do you think that there's a similarity between the two cities in terms of their history and culture and music? I mean, they're obviously steeped in a lot of history. So what is the principal reason that drew you to Lucknow?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
So first of all, good afternoon to everyone here from Vienna. It's around 3 o'clock, and it's a pleasure to be a part of this this event and the Europe Day, and very fortunate that and humbled that we were chosen for this. So MEHRUNISA is kind of being highlighted as a part of the festival. Of course, also to everyone present, my personal heart goes out to India and whatever is happening over there. We're seeing all those images from here, from Vienna. It's also coming in the news every evening, and also it's quite a horrific thing which is happening. But I feel it's still, very courageous of the Austrian Cultural Forum to have having this event, and it's also uplifting. Yeah, Austrian Cultural Forum, I've been, just a short word on that, I've been associated to it. 2 years back, we shot in New York for another film, an American film, my first film in New York, and we were like closely linked to the Austrian Cultural Forum. And I believe, Matthias, let's stay with the first names because that's how it's done in films. So Matthias, you might be doing a very nice, tall building in downtown Manhattan of the Austrian Cultural Forum. And they really supported us, so it was really great. And I happened to be in your office 2 years back in Delhi as well. And so having said that, Saibal, your question was why we chose MEHRUNISA, for MEHRUNISA, why we came to Lucknow to shoot it, right?
Right.
Yeah, so, as a filmmaker, I always say that the story is the key. So first we have the story, and based on the story chooses the protagonist, or it chooses, also the locations. So when I was writing this film, MEHRUNISA, first of all, it was like, I was supposed to do another film based in Vienna, also, Indian story based in Vienna, but that somehow with an Indian actor, that didn't work out. So instead of that, I took the script and I started writing on it and finishing it. And while writing, I always had Farrukh Jaffer in my mind as the main protagonist. So I had seen her in films like Umrao Jaan, and and I was very in awe of her format and how she is, and I really wanted her to do the role. So so during the script writing process, I wanted to go and meet her and see whether she could, she would be ready to do the role, because she was already 88 at that time, and it was a lead role. So she had done supporting roles till now, and we needed her for about 30 days. So I wasn't sure. So and then I figured out she stays in Lucknow. So it was actually the first time during the preparation and meeting her that I went to Lucknow. I'd been there as a small kid, but consciously it was the first time I was going to Lucknow. So it was first for the protagonist to meet her and narrate the script to her. And while I was there, I just thought this is the city, the best backdrop to portray MEHRUNISA, where MEHRUNISA could be set in. So that was one of the major reasons, And maybe if Mehru Jaffer would have been somewhere else, we would still have looked at Lucknow, because of certain characteristics which it has. So, but that was the good deal that we went to meet the main protagonist, and we got the city also with it.
Yeah. So my next question will be to Mehru. I mean, Lucknow as a city is always fascinating, and it's been in Hindi cinema in various ways. Satyajit Ray shot Chatranke Khiladi there, and apart from that, in recent times we've had a lot of films, Hindi films being shot there. I mean, what is it about Lucknow that makes it a melting pot of various cultural elements that have over the years, over the decades, merged into a harmonious whole? I mean, how would you explain the history of Lucknow in terms of its cultural evolution? Mehru. Did you get my question, Mehru?
She's there. Oh, she has to unmute herself. Mehru, you've got to unmute yourself.
Sorry.
Yes, I heard Saibal. I didn't realize I was muted. So when I was asked to join this forum, I was told that it's the topic is the celebration of two noble cities. So I have jotted down some points as to why these cities. Well, at first sight, it seems a ridiculous comparison between Lucknow and Vienna, because economically, Vienna is much more suave and modern, and European cities like Vienna, they survived the devastation of the Second World War and have rebuilt themselves. Whereas a city like Lucknow is only losing its glory day by day. So that is the difference, Instead of reviving or preserving, what was so great about Lucknow in the past, we are just letting it slip out of our hands. So that is a huge difference between Vienna and Lucknow. And also, Saibal, I think the reason why Satyajit Ray came to shoot in Lucknow is completely different to why Bollywood is coming to shoot in Lucknow today, because of some subsidies, and it's totally disconnected to the character of the city, because they are getting some kind of help from the government, and so it's convenient to come and shoot in Lucknow. But Satyajit Ray could not have shot Shatranj Ke Khiladi anywhere else but in Lucknow, because he first internalized Munshi Premchand's short story, and then he wrote the script, and then he had no choice but to come and shoot Shatranj Ke Khiladi in Lucknow. So having said that, I'll just go to my notes and share with you a few thoughts. So
sure.
First of all, I love the reason why we are meeting here today to celebrate peace and unity. These are the two most important virtues that are needed desperately around the world today. So I would like to wish all of us and Europe a happy Europe Day. I congratulate all attempts made by Europe in the last decade to minimize conflict, at least on their own continent. Never mind what is happening, what they're doing to the rest of the world. Thank you, Austrian Cultural Forum, for letting me share my views on two of my favorite cities in the world, Lucknow, because I was born here, and Vienna is where my children are born and where they continue to have a home. I have never been too sure about the exact political and economic benefits of conflict for the majority of people in the world. But I do believe that if there is no meeting between ordinary human beings, no gupshup, no plowdown, no confluence of human ideas in a coffee house or on the streets of storytellers, then it is not possible, in fact, impossible for human beings to enjoy a culture of any value. And that is the most obvious commonality between Lucknow and Vienna. Both these cities, landlocked and yet so open to other human beings, two civilizations really, on the banks of their respective rivers, the Gomti and the Danube, share a past oozing with high culture, because those in power opened up their cities to citizens and made them feel at home. And that, I think, is the reason that we are talking about the two cities today, because they were able to provide from time to time, not always, and it wasn't hunky-dory always, but from time to time, their citizens were made to feel a sense of comfort in the city they lived in. It was not man-made national boundaries, man-made national flags, or a man-made national anthem, but the citizen, it was always the citizen who was made to feel at the center of the city. It is most important to talk about the multiculturalism, plurality, and diversity encouraged at different moments in history by the elite in both Lucknow and Vienna, which makes them unique. This is what makes the city unique. We are in Lucknow enjoying the remnants of those good times, and maybe in Vienna, those good times are a little better preserved. But this is what makes both the cities so unique and so similar at a time when societies around the world are being forced to narrow down life to a simple, one-dimensional, routine-like, everyone speaks one language, wears similar clothes, eats what bullies tell you to eat, and to be part of one religion. Citizens of both Lucknow and Vienna, I must remind you that it was the very Catholic, very religious Empress Maria Theresa who allowed a little more freedom to the Protestant Christian, to the Jews, and her son Joseph the second or first he was, but Maria Theresa's son, despite being a Catholic, allowed a lot of freedom to other people believing in other religions and living in the Habsburg Empire. Citizens of both Lucknow and Vienna enjoy the remnants of a certain unique, generous, magnanimous, free way of life even today, because long ago, some Habsburg rulers of Vienna, during a stay, I think, of more than 900 years, and the Nawab rulers of Lucknow over a rule of nearly 90 years, were confident enough as leaders to allow societies to be as colorful as nature willed them to be. It seems a little odd to be praising monarchs today in modern times when democratic values are what citizens aspire for. But unfortunately, the truth is that on hindsight, some monarchs seem to have been much better intentioned than many a democratically elected politician today. In the midst of ugly power struggles, despite wars and eccentricities practiced by rulers of both Lucknow and Vienna, many attempts were also made to make life more colorful and more just for citizens. And that is the lesson that is most relevant to us from the past of both these cities. And that justifies our topic today, to talk about Lucknow and Vienna and to see what is similar and different between these two glorious cities. Because of the openness of some of the rulers of both the cities, there was a burst of high thinking, high fashion, high cuisine, high works of art, but not high German in Vienna or Hochdeutsch, because the Viennese had nursed enough confidence to continue to converse in German, but in their own dialect, with a very laid back, lilting accent of their own. Similar to the lilting, laid back way of speaking in Lucknow, which is also like Vienna, a buffer space between the eastern and western regions of where the two cities are located in their respective parts of the world. Vienna was an extension of the Holy Roman Empire, and Lucknow rulers were an extension or in the employment of Mughal Delhi, and how they gained independence for themselves and blossomed as very special kingdoms is a story worth following up. What is not to be forgotten and merits appreciation in this day and age is that both empires made conscious attempts to temper religiosity in order to buy peace and unity that actually in the long run help trade and markets to prosper. Far-reaching reforms of some of the monarchs made religious tolerance a state policy. Catholic rulers in Vienna taught themselves to be tolerant towards Protestants, Orthodox Christians, Greek Catholics, and Jews, and institutionalized tolerance towards the other, encouraging mixed marriages and containing fanatic Catholics. And something similar was done also in Lucknow by the Nawabs, who intermingled with the Hindus, with the different caste of Hindus, and of course the Dalits, to answer Saibal's question, make a melting pot of this city. The attempt was to tame unpredictable religious passions that could cause riots and disturb peace and unity in neighborhoods. Similarly, the court in Lucknow allowed modern thoughts brought here from European travelers to enrich their traditional way of life. When life in Delhi began to decline after 1707, Lucknow welcomed all the talent that had made Delhi such a grand capital city. And soon it was Lucknow that became the talk of the world as Paris of the East, and where the skyline competed with that of Constantinople. So these were some of the thoughts which I thought I have to share with you, and we can take the discussion further from here.
Thank you very much, Mehru, for that very illuminating overview of the two cities. In a time where tolerance is going missing in our lives. Not exactly. Just in Lucknow, but the whole country and the whole world probably.
And people also religion being used to
precisely.
So tolerance, such a nuisance of itself,
Absolutely, yeah. So my question to Sandeep, if we bring that down to the personal level, you said you made your first film in New York. You now have shot a film in Lucknow. You live in Vienna. And the Lucknow film was also partly funded by the Austrian film, system, commission, or whatever you call it. And so as a filmmaker, how important is it for you to straddle these different worlds and, being a citizen of the world instead of being, limited to one city or one country or one place? Sandeep.
I mean, first of all, I always enjoy Mehru talking. I always say she's so strong with a pen and with her words. So it's like really nice to listen to her. And it's like Mehru, and our film's name is MEHRUNISA, although it's not connected to each other, but still I really adore,
Of course.
I love listening to Mehru.
It's obviously connected.
Yeah, and so much of knowledge behind it. Well, and my thing is very intuitive. So, Saibal, it was not my first film in New York. It was my first film made in New York, but it was not my first film. So I made my first film in 2009, which was called Kesaria Balam, Liebe ohne Grenzen. And that was like, all in Vienna, shot in Vienna and in Tyrol, And my second film, feature film, was Savosisk, which was 2014-15, shot in Vienna, the state of Tyrol, and in a pilgrimage place here called Mariazell, And so that's why, the location of places really fascinates me. I've been shooting so much in Vienna that, whenever I go to some place in Vienna, I've already shot over there, So I love just going and looking, and wherever I am, it's always a 24 hours location scouting. So that is, the energy of the place is very important to me. So what was your question again? Like,
my question was, how important is it for you to be a citizen of the world and not, being confined to one place, but to sort of imbibe different influences and putting them into your work as a filmmaker? Is that important for you?
Yeah, it is. It is. I really love it because then, if going to new places where you've never been to before, like when I was shooting in New York, so it was a completely new perspective. A person from Manhattan would shoot completely different over there. And the same was when I do that in Vienna, because, when I'm speaking to my colleagues who are like, camera people and, other filmmakers. So they say that you portray Vienna in a completely different manner. Sometimes it's like if you're looking at this genre which I created in 2009, 2010 called Austro Bollywood, which was like, a crossover of Austrian realistic cinema and mainstream Bollywood, with which I made 2 films in 2009 and 2014. It was, of course, it was cliched, but I love putting in elements of like, Vienna, which is like the red tram, or in the first district, the narrow lanes, the horse cart, which you have in the first district. So I was very, fascinated by those things, but portrayed in a completely different perspective. In one of the films in 2009 in Liebe ohne Grenzen, we had, this Austrian woman running along the red tram in front of the parliament along the ring in Vienna. So nobody in Austria has done that before. And all my, filmmaker colleagues, they were saying, like what kind of a combination is this, But it certainly has a relevance into what the location, and what Mehru was saying earlier, that a lot of filmmakers now from Bollywood are coming to Lucknow to shoot films over there because of different reasons than the location, because of grants and all that. Fortunately or unfortunately, I never had that, was never in that space, because I never had to go somewhere because we were having grants to shoot it. I always went to a place if it was very relevant to the story. Like, I went to Mariazell and they were surprised that we wanted to shoot 1/3 of a film of Savosisk over there. So they said never ever had somebody come to Mariazell to shoot something like Austro Bollywood film. And so we were there for 2 weeks. And so I think that has a certain energy with it. And the same was with Lucknow. When I went to Lucknow, didn't take any, I didn't consult anyone like where to shoot over there. I just wanted to see it with my eyes. And, and my DP, he's a German living in Austria. And so when I took him along for the shoot, he was coming, that was his first visit to India ever. And that to Lucknow. And whatever said and done, I of course advertised Lucknow as the grand city, something like Vienna. And it was quite a big cultural shock for him when he was there. We had, other people from Austria who could culminate well or adjust well to the situation. They loved it. But this German DOP, it was quite a shock because, it is, as far as cleanliness is concerned, you have to be careful where you're putting your foot and, so that you don't step in. So it's like big differences as well, but we wanted to have our view on it. So that's why I took him along, so that we have our view on it and not have that cliched thinking of this is a Haveli and we have to shoot here. And, so we just, so you will see elements in MEHRUNISA as well, like something like we have the rickshaw, but we also have this very peculiar tempo kind of a thing. This is an auto rickshaw. I don't know what it is. Chetak? I don't know. The green thing where they travel around. It has some name. And
Bajaj.
So what's it called?
Bajaj.
Those are those three-wheelers. Three-wheelers.
Three-wheelers.
Yeah.
It has something like Chetak, or it has some other name, you know. So we put that in it. Then we put the chai. Tempo. So, and we put the chai shop in it, which was very exciting for me when I visited Lucknow, because, you know, coming from Delhi, we don't, chai is, of course, we are having when we visit someone, there's a lot of, but there's not this chai culture where you, like in Vienna, people go to coffee houses and have 20 cups of coffee in a day. In Lucknow, they're having like chai every, 15 minutes. And so I was joking when we were shooting for MEHRUNISA over there in the house, which we had, the Haveli kind of. I said that there are three C's which are important for shooting in Lucknow. The 3 C's. So one is the camera, and then you have the clap, the film clap, and the third is chai. So every 15 minutes, you had that person coming in with small cutting chai, masala chai, and people loved it. The Austrian crew, they got so used to it. Nobody was talking about coffee anymore. They were just having those chai. And I think it's a great place where people come in during the shoot and meet, whether it's the director or the or the technician. They're all coming in and having those shots of chai and then eagerly waiting. So my crew was Austrian crew. They were eagerly waiting. When is the next round of chai going to come in? So that was like, it's quite interesting. And moreover, because nobody had ever gone to India before. So their first impression and their last impression till now of India is what Lucknow is, So I think it's quite interesting if we ever have a screening of MEHRUNISA to talk also about that. What their impression. So they go around telling people how India is like based on what Lucknow is like.
Okay. So can we see a bit of MEHRUNISA now? If there's a clip that you want to share, Manish, could you, so that we can then continue talking about the film a little more?
I think we go with the trailer which Sandeep has sent us yesterday.
Okay.
So we will just go have a.
Okay. Play that and then we'll come back.
We'll just.
जी अदाकारा MEHRUNISA जी का घर है।
आपने बताया नहीं? बड़ी अम्मी की एक्ट्रेस थी, छुपाया।
स्क्रिप्ट एकदम बकवास है। बेगम को हीरो बनाओ, बेगम को। मैं करूंगी ये रोल मैं।
हमारा सपना है BBC लंदन में काम करने का। BBC लंदन। ये कौन से अनरियलिस्टिक वर्ल्ड में जी रही हो तुम? You are just like अम्मी। वो इस उम्र में वो लीड रोल होने के ख्वाब देख रही है और तुम लंदन जाने के। मॉम, वो अपनी जिंदगी जीना चाहती हैं बस।
बात है किसी नवाब के पैर की जूती फिर से नहीं बनने की, बल्कि बॉलीवुड में वो घिसे पिटे पुराने तरीकों को तोड़ने की बात है, जो कि हम अपने घर में नहीं कर पाए।
चेंजेस किसने किया?
हमने किया और किसने किया?
ये भी कोई मजाक है?
मजाक आप लोगों ने बनाया है। 1857 की गदर का, हम लखनवी औरतों के जज्बातों का।
35 करोड़ रुपए प्रोड्यूसर लगा रहा है, आप नहीं।
Good.
Thank you. So, I know you have touched upon this already, I think, Sandeep, but just quickly tell us how the film germinated and how tough was it, I mean, logistically to film in Lucknow? I mean, did the line producer in Lucknow help you, navigate all the problems that you might have faced in the city, which was new to you as a filmmaker and as a person?
Well, I mean, of course, every project is very challenging, and I'm always saying that if filmmakers and politicians are in the same boat, because when you get up in the morning, you don't know what's going to happen till the evening, everything could crumble, like the politician could lose his seat, and that's also filmmakers are, in the same position. Now, having said that, of course, how did the project start? I had this thought, and I was, where are all the yesteryear actresses which we saw when we were kids, or even before my time. So where are they? So they were they were well in their 60s or their 70s, and and they were never to be seen in the Indian film industry. And if at all they were seen, they were just seen as placeholders, an aunt or a grandmother or something like that. And I grew up watching Bollywood films, but when I came over here, then I was, exposed to a lot of Austrian cinema, and I also attended, workshops of Michael Haneke, and I really started liking that cinema. And I saw that, here there are also stories where you have older women, older people being the main protagonists, but it was never the case in Bollywood, apart from certain male protagonists who we have. So that's how the idea started, that why don't we have in India, our senior citizens who can tell stories? And that's how I felt that, that was the initial idea, I think, of MEHRUNISA, because I don't know where exactly it starts and how it, culminates into the story that it is. And then when we thought about, and then we decided, and then slowly during the production phase, we had to get a line producer over there. And my concept was to keep it simple, and very, very local, to tell a very local story, So we, of course, in one of my trips to Lucknow before the shoot, we got a line producer over there, and we set it up the way it is set up, but we had to not just go over there and shoot. We had to combine these two cultures, because we had like a big team in Lucknow, and all the artists were from the UP and Lucknow area. But our main head of departments for the shoot were coming from Austria. So how do I connect both of them? And things here are very systematic. When you go to shoot, everything is planned to the dot. And, if you say you start at 8, you're starting at 8, And so having a line producer over there, and, knowing two cultures, was more flexible. But of course, when you're there 2 weeks before the shoot and still things are not done, you have to run after things. But, being originally from India, we are used to it. But when my team arrived from Austria, and then we were 3 or 4 days before the shoot, we were in the middle of the workshops, and then we realized that people were coming in very late. We started the workshops at 8, and they were coming in at 9 or 10. The side supporting artists and all that. So we were worried how we are going to get this done. And then we realized that, it is the cliche which is there, that Nawabiyat of Lucknow. It is actually there. People are very laid back, and it is like a lot of people, when they're sitting in the chai shop, they're taking the day for granted or life for granted. And, so we had to deal with that. And, of course, when we started shooting, and the call was at 6 o'clock, and our German DOP, the cameraman, he was looking at his watch when it was 2 minutes past 6, until 6:15, there was no coach coming to pick us up, which was planned and all that. So, I had some explaining to do towards the Austrian crew to keep them happy about it, not get very frustrated that this is how it works in India. And then I introduced this concept of jugaad. I told them in India, things go with the flow, and things will happen. Don't worry, things will happen. Although I was quite uncertain and insecure myself at times. Will we be able to make it? Will we be able to shoot the entire day? But I had to keep them in good mood. So I told them, this is how things happen. People come in, and even if we start 1 hour late, we'll get things done. So there were problems which were there, which were sought out in the last moment. And I feel that Indians we Indians have this great ability to make things work even if it is in the last moment. I mean, probably it's a wrong time to talk about it, not in view of the corona situation, but otherwise, I think even in the last minute, when we're talking about films or we're talking about events, Europeans might feel very nervous when they're in that kind of atmosphere. Why are things not up and why are not the things according to plan? But things still come up on the last moment. And, that is how we, day by day, we, for 25 to 27 days, we pulled through. And now my entire team here is very surprised how far we have got with the film, because when we were shooting it, they never realized you would make it in those circumstances. So it was really coming up of two cultures together. And also with a line producer, there were problems with our Austrian team, in communication, because, when they say this time, it means this time, or when they say we need 50, 50 extras, it means 50 extras and not like, 40 or 60. So this thing about, it is okay, things can be done. So these are two different cultures. So even in production wise, that had to be, set in. But I feel that they started loving the people, they started loving the intention behind it. And, everybody was so hospitable over there. Great food. I think whatever is there in punctuality and other things in Lucknow, they make up with food and hospitality.
Food, yeah.
So, and they were great. There was great food. We were invited so many times. And so that was like, the crew was, they really lost their heart over there. So did I,
Yeah. So my next question is to Mehru, and I think it's right up her street. I mean, see, the film is, I saw the film only a day ago, thanks to Sandeep. He sent me the link. And it's actually fresh in my mind. And it's about patriarchy and ageism, and how women have to fight constantly to find their place in the movie industry. So that's one aspect of the film. But it also talks about the writing of history and how it's dominated by men. And so would you like to talk about the history of Lucknow and the history of the 1857 Gadar from the point of view of women, or from the point of view of the Begums, which is like reflected in the film, Mehru?
She has it on mute.
Yeah.
Lucknow and the suburbs of the region called Awadh, which is now after independence called Uttar Pradesh. This was a huge center of agriculture, and this is where the wealth of the wealthy came from. The just like the Habsburgs were rich because of the churches owned lots and lots of vineyards, and that was their main income. Also in Lucknow, in the Awadh region, in UP, the main wealth came from agricultural activities in the countryside, and the link between a capital city and a very urban, urbane place like Lucknow and the countryside where the agricultural activities were concentrated. There was midway, there was the Kasbah that connected the city to the countryside. And these Kasbahs were inhabited by landlords who were just owners of very rich agricultural land, like maybe the Austrian Graf, who didn't actually grow the wine. He didn't tend to the vineyard. He had peasants doing that. Also, the landlord, the zamindar in Uttar Pradesh, owned land, but actually was not tilling the land. He had slaves to do that kind of work. So there was a lot of wealth that the landlord had, but no work. So that wealth went into creating a very sophisticated high culture, because they had all the time in the world and all the money in the world to build beautiful libraries, to travel around the world, to educate themselves. And even though the women of the landlord families may not have enjoyed an education in Cambridge or Oxford, they didn't travel, but because the atmosphere was so education and intellectual activity friendly, that even the women imbibed a lot of literary activities. And so if you look at the 20th century, it is one section of society in Uttar Pradesh is extremely enlightened. So you have at the turn of the, when Klimt was painting in Vienna, and when the secession movement was at its peak. Also in India, there was a lot of literary activities in which women were a part. So in the early 20th century, you have these brilliant writers like Qurratul Ain Haider and Ismat Chughtai. And so it wasn't as if all women en masse were oppressed and backward, So there was a section of society that, so MEHRUNISA's journey in the film is kind of not representative of its experience with the patriarchy in general, but it's like a personal. He was just to be married to a very grumpy
Nawab.
I talked to Sandeep about the concept of Nawab last night. When I say insensitive and immediately you say Nawab, that is an impression of Nawabdom which is left to us by the colonialists, because UP was so affluent and it had so much of. So they had to say, I'm greedy and I want the wealth of you.
Hang on, stop.
I think she's got disconnected.
I think her bandwidth is low.
Okay.
Could be the bandwidth is low.
Be back.
So we can come back to her. Maybe I can.
Maybe Sandeep can throw. Sandeep, I mean, Saibal, if you may allow me to ask.
No, sure. Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Sandeep, I just would like to know is, before going on to the floor, you write the story, then you do yourself the screenplay and all. Just want to know is, now since you have spent so much of time in Austria, do you think does the Austrian literary part dominates or influences your writing of films which are from totally a different scenario or from a different location? For example, now MEHRUNISA, when you were writing a story about it or you were writing something, so I'm sure sometimes you must have got influenced by the Austrian literary point of view also. So I would like to know something, if you could throw light on that. And also I would like to know one thing more from you was that you said, of course, you came to Lucknow and then of course you did you somehow personify MEHRUNISA with the old city or nobility or struggling city of Lucknow, or it was just a far-fetched idea only? Over to you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, of course, the first part of your question is that, your sensibilities do change. When you're writing, it's not according to the location that you write, but you write according to what you want to write and the story. So, Bollywood films, or as I grew watching Bollywood films, and they are to a certain extent now also quite linear. Everything is told, everything is, stated in front of, for the audience, because it's meant for a very broad audience, from 6 to 80-year-old, everybody can watch a Bollywood film and understand what's going on. The difference to Austrian cinema is, or let's say Michael Haneke kind of cinema is, the points are very far away from each other. So I'm very fascinated by that, because that kind of engages, the audience more to understand. There's a certain mystery about it. You don't and that's what Michael Haneke also said in one of his workshops. It's about the subcontext. It's not about what is said. Dialogues are not very important. That happens in a life as well. When you observe, people talking, it's not about what they're talking about, but it's how they're behaving, their body language, the subcontext plays such an important role. And so that does make a difference. So I'm very fascinated by that, the points are placed away from each other. And that is the kind of writing which I have now, that, but still I tend to make it more explanatory. But the more courageous you get is when you place the points really so far from each other. The other story which I saw where the points were placed so far away was Inglourious Bastards. So that was like, something is happening now, and then after 6 months, and you're connecting the points, So that is what I tend to write in now, and that doesn't make a difference where it is set in. You could have a films. It actually also depends on the story. If you have a film, something like Lunchbox, it'll be a very linear thing. Things are happening every day, and you have to, you talk about that. And but generally, it is about having not showing everything, not revealing everything, having the points, having the film should play in the heads and minds of the audience, and not that you're saying everything, and this is something which really disturbs me. Something like, if you watch film like, I think it was Pink with Amitabh Bachchan. So, where it's about also female empowerment, and, so he's, it is being said 3-4 times in the film that when a woman says no, it means no. So a lot is being said. So this thing should be like portrayed in the heads of the viewers, instead of saying that. So that is one of the, styles which I find are different here in Austrian cinema than, in Bollywood. And so that, of course, and the other sensibilities which come in is according to the films you watch. So if I'm watching a lot of Austrian films, I like watching a lot of independent films, even independent films from Iran and South Korea, and those kind of films. So then your mindset goes into that telling micro stories. I mean, I love telling micro stories which have a huge impact. Something like, even if you look at Parasite from last year, it's a very micro story, but it has a global relevance. So that is what I think is being affected by, sensibilities. The other part of your question was about
Lucknow, about MEHRUNISA, the character reflecting Lucknow's struggles and Lucknow today as an individual, symbolizing the city's struggles.
Yeah, I think a lot of elements in Lucknow also stuck in the past. If you look at the Havelis, which I realized not every house is called a Haveli, it's called a Manzil, So they have, as we have in MEHRUNISA as well, where MEHRUNISA lives, it's a dilapidated old house. The car she drives in is an old ambassador, So it is all gets stuck in the past. So in a lot of places over there, even the buildings, the lifestyle is, I also visited people living in Old Town, Hasrat Ganj, I guess. Their house, when you enter, it is like you're going 200 years or 100 years in the past, with the furniture they have and all that. And similarly to that, a lot of ideas, even the idea of patriarchy in that way, are stuck to the past, Even if you don't have that kind of patriarchy, but you have the ideas. So ideas don't change so fast. And so as well doesn't lifestyle. So people are clinging on to, old kind of lifestyles, and feeling nostalgic about it, and living that way. So the same is with MEHRUNISA, because the kind of house she stays in, it is, it was an intention to keep it very, very simple, but it has old furniture, and it has it's a huge house, but they have a car, but a lot of with Nawabs or people who have huge cars, but they don't have money for the petrol, and they have houses, but they are not renovated, and it is like that hollow kind of pride, hollow, just like they say shan, so it's like Khokli shan. So it is. So that was the comparison, and that is what really fascinated me about that place. And when we saw this house, this dilapidated house, we saw a bit of it in the trailer where MEHRUNISA lives. The energy was like that. So that you feel that energy, and I feel that there's a difference for me. I love shooting in natural locations because the energy is already there. You feel it. It's, in contrary to making a set and making it look that way. So there's a huge difference in, having that house, which is like that, or you set up a house and you make it look that way. And I think people do feel it. So there were a lot of things. We had this, this old, this ambassador, which was actually breaking down. It was not possible to shoot in it because it was not in condition where it could run. So that was quite interesting. So even the streets, which you see, even the rickshaw and, the whole Lucknow, which is shown in the film, is that kind of a Lucknow. We only show one modern cafe, which is shown as the second generation of our daughter, MEHRUNISA's daughter, which is, so we had to show the contemporary way of and how the granddaughter also is kind of stuck in this old ideas of patriarchy and old dilapidated house. So she's like, when she's smoking and she's sitting on a window, the whole set would take you to some other era, and her boyfriend, who's also in his 20s, is telling you, I would like to give you permission to do something, which is, so much of the past. So, so these were, I think that way it culminated well, the story and the setup together.
Yeah. So, I mean, this question that Manish asked was also a question that I was going to ask, but I'm going to rephrase it and make it more specific. I mean, you live and work in a country, which has produced Michael Haneke and Jessica Hausner and Ulrich Seidel. And is there any one of them who's your personal favorite and whose films you go back to, as a filmmaker seeking inspiration?
I mean, I really like their work. It's very, for me personally, I feel it's very dangerous to have just one favorite and, just copying him, because that's when I meet the students of the Film Academy who are learning filmmaking from Haneke himself. So, they are very fascinated by that. So I just feel that everybody should have their own style and not, just copy the style of someone else. I got fascinated by Amour. The first time I watched Amour, it was like, okay, but the second time I really loved it, and the third time. So every time I was discovering new elements in it. And I think that is a fantastic quality of a brilliant filmmaker, where every time you watch it carefully, and you are like, discovering new elements. Same happened with me, by the way, if you're talking about Indian filmmakers with Lunchbox as well. I've watched Lunchbox 10 times. Every time I'm discovering new things. And the same is, of course, I mean, Ulrich Seidel. I don't know how many people have watched these films. Are very you have to be in that frame of mind to watch his
Ulrich Seidel.
And I've met him also personally, and meeting him is the same as watching his film. So it's like, you have to be in that frame of mind, or you have to have a couple of days to recover from that frame of mind after watching those films. And of course, Jessica Hausner, I was in Cannes in 2019, and happened to also watch Little Joe, which also goes in those lines. So they have their own style, and I feel it's very interesting, those styles. But I don't want to just copy one style. I have my favorite filmmakers. I watch the films, and I just like to learn from the elements of those, films. And they are very, they're very bold films. When saying about Michael Haneke just having that one frame, even if you see White Ribbon and people going out of the frame, and you're just watching that frame, and you're getting, what the hell is going on? Because normally the camera should move along with the protagonist, but the frame just stays there. And something else is happening, and you're watching it like a window. It's his own style, but it could annoy you in the beginning, especially if you're coming from a place like India, watching Bollywood films where you're like, every movement is followed. But after some time, you start loving it, because even in your normal life, if you're viewing something, people do go out of the frame and come in. You're not like the camera is not, it's not like a camera which is watching you going into the bathroom, then coming out, going into the kitchen and all that. So I think you have to allow yourself to get into, to love that, that's where so it's not about, you see it and then you love it. You have to get in the frame of mind. And that's what I'm also telling people when I was at that time, when I was making those Austro-Bollywood films. So I was telling them, to watch these kind of films, you have to have a different frame of mind. You can't be in a logical frame of mind and watch a Shah Rukh Khan or a Yash Chopra film, And then I had that discussion with Austrian producers over there. I mean, the producer who was producing our Servosisch, he's like the Oscar-winning Joseph Eichholzer. So why does the main heroine have to change her sari 5 times in the song? Because so you can't, it's not a logical film and a realistic film like other films. So you have to have a different frame of mind to watch any film. And also that is also for Ulrich Seidel and Michael Haneke. So you can't expect something else and watch Amour or Happy End for that matter, because that will frustrate you.
Yeah, but Sandeep, do you have a full-on Bollywood script lurking somewhere in your computer, which will come out one day and see the light of day?
Oh, I don't write Bollywood films. If at all, then I write Austro-Bollywood films. So that's like,
okay. So that's a different genre.
I was telling you, it was like, somehow I feel, and that's people are also saying something like Woody Allen, because I always like to get elements of Vienna and Austria and elements from India and put them together. I love doing that because I feel like, why would anybody wait for me in Bollywood to come and make another film? And why would anybody wait over here for me to make another, Michael Haneke kind of a film? So if I have two sensibilities, why don't I mix them together? So the film which we were planning in 2008, we're working on that. And I'm still like, instead of that, we made MEHRUNISA. So we got an actor from India to come here. So we were working with, Nawazuddin Siddiqui, you can say that. And we were wanting him to learn German and, and he came over here. We're working on him. We're together with him for this film, which got postponed. And instead of that, I made MEHRUNISA. So my idea is to, connect the two cultures. So I was very fascinated by, you spoke about Michael Haneke, but I was also very fascinated by Meera Nair and also Gurinder Chadha. So what they are doing with, Indian American, Indian London, I think Indian, Austrian and Indian Indo-German thing, is something which is different. So, coming out with something new, that's what excites me, and always taking up topics which are also difficult for me. Not keeping on repeating, because people here are saying, why don't you make another Servosisch, because it was such a cult film and people loved it over here, and why don't you do another one of that? So I said, that is simple, let me do something new. So, and some new topics, because as someone said that it's very easy to learn filmmaking, but it's difficult to learn what to make films about, So taking on topics which give something back to the society, and which is and so the next film which I'm writing right now is the one which I'd been planning to do working on with Nawaz. So that was, it's a father-daughter story, and it's about an Indian immigrant in Austria. So that's a very exciting story as well. So it's Bollywood, but it'll be Indo-Austrian,
Okay.
Bollywood is risky, because the moment you say Bollywood, people think of the Yash Raj films and sari flying on Tyrol and all that. So we have to. I always tell people you have to really differentiate. We have Bollywood in India. At the same time, we have Anurag Kashyap and we have Ritesh Batra making their films. And then we have Austro Bollywood, and then we have Indian films or Indian Austro films which I'm making. So there are different genres.
Okay. So, Manish, can we throw this open to more questions from others? Manish?
Oh, you're on mute, Manish.
Manish?
I think so. We open up the thing now for the question answer session.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
I would say so. Mehruji say, I just would like to ask one thing. How do the people feel about, or how you felt about Fiaka and Ikka?
Sorry, fiaca and ikka. The fiaca is in much better shape than the ikka. It is much better preserved and much better taken care of. I was sorry, I was in such good spirits, talking about the internet connection.
Yeah, actually, Mehru, I was going to come back to that. I mean, would you continue from where you left off?
I have forgotten what I said, but I do want to say to Saibal that for me, MEHRUNISA is a story of decay and of the protagonist overriding the decay, of triumphing decay,
Okay.
So,
There's an echo. Somebody.
Yeah. So it is because the city of Lucknow is in the process of decay. Nobody is really bothered that it is decaying. But MEHRUNISA's determination is to at least save herself, save one citizen of Lucknow from falling prey to decay. I think that's that is the spirit of that lovely, wonderful movie.
And may I ask you how you came on board as a co-producer? Were you involved with this?
I know Sandeep, and when, of course, I know him from Vienna. And what is common between us is our love for cinema. So that is, we've been friends. And when he wanted to film in Lucknow, then, everybody who cares about good films then came on board to help him. So it's basically, just to support Sandeep that this movie gets made. So that is our role in this lovely film.
And one question I'm curious about this. What do you make of the spurt of films set in Uttar Pradesh, particularly in Lucknow, which because of Film Bandhu, a lot of people are coming and shooting.
Yes.
Are you happy with what, the web shows and the films, and are you happy with how they are showing Lucknow, in cultural?
No, of course, different people are showing Lucknow in different ways. So it's not as if everybody is, people also, audiences have problems with the way Munshi Chand, Premchand portrays the Nawabs in a short story, because that is the colonial view, that the Nawabs were decadent, they were effeminate. But for God's sake, Wajid Ali Shah has left 500 books on dance and poetry. Nobody talks about the literary achievement of the Nawab. So this, I had to consciously in my head, because we were grown up with the image that the British have left, of Awadh. And then I, as a person who's fond of reading and understanding life through reading and literature, realize that this is something which is not true, that people were the rebellion in 1857 against the British was led by a woman called Begum Hazrat Mahal, so it can't have been that decadent, so this is an impression that the colonialists have left in our society to say, oh, this land had to be taken away from the local rulers because they were so lazy, they were so unpunctual, they were so unprofessional. So this is justifying the colonization of our home, so we have to, so when I say this poor woman called MEHRUNISA is unfortunately forced to live with a husband who's insensitive, the reaction of Saibal immediately is Nawabi, you know. No, Nawab means also having introduced diversity, multiculturalism, plurality into our lives, you know, this was, the rulers were a minority community and they were Shia Muslims, so they were a minority within the Muslim community, and they ruled this place as if, with such confidence that even the majority community doesn't enjoy. So what was it that gave them confidence? What gave confidence to a beloved ruler like Wajid Ali Shah was the love of his subjects. He was so confident that the people he ruled over loved him. So, he 3 times in a year, on Holi, Basant, and another time, he opened the palace doors. There were no cobra, what do you call it? The cobra. The cobra security guards.
Okay, the black cats.
The black cats, guarding the king. The king was dressed up like a jogi sitting under the tree, and he was meeting his subjects, so this tremendous confidence that the ruler had with his subjects, with the people he ruled, this nobody talks of, and this is the charm, this is the leftover crumbs of those glorious times that we still notice here and there and continue to be attracted to a city like Lucknow. Because Lucknow, what is Lucknow? It's just another geographical place. It's the people and the way we talk, the way we live, the way we are hospitable, the way we care for our guests. Is that way of life is what makes Lucknow different,
Sure.
I lived in Vienna for 35 years, and in every corner I glimpsed a little bit of Lucknow. This terrible nostalgia, because the times were so good in the past that you don't want to let go of it. It is not just sticking. MEHRUNISA has this dilapidated car because that is the only transport she has. She lives in a decaying home because that is the only home she has. It's not as if she wants it to be decayed to cling to the past. No, she's not clinging to the past. That is her present. Her present.
True.
So I think it's the spirit of MEHRUNISA captures, the spirit, the way Lucknow is today very well. To say that it is decaying, it has lost all its glory, unlike Vienna, but there is also the will to do whatever you can to stick to the values that you believe in.
Yeah.
I don't know if these.
No, that's very convincing. I absolutely agree with you, because see, when we watch a film, we have to sort of deconstruct it, and we look for the easiest thing, because we also have to communicate with the reader. So we have deconstructed in a way that the reader gets it. But
I think this is very clear in the film.
Yeah. So from the point of view of somebody who knows the city, who has written about it, and who understands everything there is to understand about the city, we can only see it from outside. We go to Lucknow on our food trips. We go to Ahmedabad and Hazratganj, and we have our royal kachori, the chaat, or we have kebabs and all that. But really, so the food is central to, the central part of Lucknow.
The cuisine is also central part of Vienna, and most of the food is from the outlying subjects of the Habsburg Empire. So you have the Bohemian, you have the Hungarian goulash, and nothing, I mean, nothing is pure and truly local. You know, everything is sprinkled with a lot of influences from all over the world. And this is so beautiful, but I don't know, people don't realize that if you live in peace and harmony, you will your bank balance will also increase. So I don't know how they connect. They think if they divide, then they will have more money than
they will thrive.
But this is, you know, such stupid logic, you know.
True. Yeah. So any more questions, you know, from the others who have?
Ira has a question.
Yeah, sure.
Hello. Yeah. It's a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for it. I haven't actually seen the film, and I'm so interested now to see this film. And my question, of course, simple question is, but I also have a comment about this discussion and about Lucknow. I don't know Vienna at all, but I'm so fascinated by what you're saying, Mehru, about Vienna and Lucknow. And that's what really interested me in this discussion. But what I wanted to say about Lucknow, and it just to add to what you've been saying, and yes, sure, it's a, you know, there is a decaying quality about old Lucknow and all of that. And it's such a pity that the rulers, you know, whichever government has been in power in Lucknow hasn't really used, you know, the cultural value of Lucknow and preserved it. But what I wanted to say, and here I do want to say something about Bombay cinema, which is that Lucknow has a symbolic value, or it had a symbolic, apart from Filmi Bandhu and all. I'm not talking about contemporary Bollywood films that are being shot in Lucknow for whatever reason, you know, but I'm talking about the symbolic value of Lucknow for Bombay cinema, particularly for the Muslim socials that were made between 1940s and 1960s, even 70s, and what Lucknow really meant. You know, Lucknow was, and it's very interesting, Mehru, that you talked about Lucknow as a city that was ruled by Shia Nawabs. And that's precisely the point, that within Muslims, Shias were a minority. And yet, you know, the value of what the Shias brought to Lucknow is what has formed our imagination of Lucknow. So there is a, you know, a symbolic value to the city of poetry, of music, of dance, of Thumris. Wajid Ali Shah, of course. And Wajid Ali Shah, I mean, Ray may have a particular kind of depiction which is related to 1857, but actually, if you look at the Thumri singers and you look at the Thumris produced, the plays, Inder Sabha's first, you know, it was a major play. It was in Wajid Ali Shah's court, and it went on to become one of the most popular plays of Parsi theatre all over India, including South India and Southeast Asia. So literature, poetry, music, dance,
architecture,
you know, absolutely. And so the fact, and architecture, I mean, I visited Faizabad along with Lucknow. I went to Faizabad and I looked at the architecture of Faizabad, and it is decaying. But it is exquisite, you know, the some of the monuments in Faizabad, which have been encroached on and so on. And you stand in the middle of buildings like that and the beauty of that, and feel that how could this city, Lucknow and Faizabad, how could the city not have produced the kind of cultural value and the kind of emotion that even in today's Lucknow, you see reflected in the language that is spoken. And I'm not talking about just the Urdu. Of course, there's the Urdu, there's the Hindustani, but also the quality of the Hindustani that is spoken, the lehza with which it's spoken, the tehzeeb of it, you still feel it in the old families in Lucknow. So, and I think that so I'm very interested in the film, Sandeep. I'm sorry I've not seen it. I haven't had an opportunity, and I'm going to, please let me know where, on which platform I can actually access it. I'm so intrigued. But I do also want to speak up for Bombay cinema and say that if there is one cinema that has captured the value and the symbolic value of Lucknow and its arts, its music, it's everything, dance, music. And I'm not only talking about the Umrao Jans, I'm also talking about unknown films like Mehboob Khan's, 1943 film called Najma. I'm talking about, so there is the Umrao Jans, of course, but there's also, Barsat Ki Raat. It'll end in Lucknow. All the Muslim socials would end in Lucknow because Lucknow was the imagination of the city was the imagination of what this culture actually meant, what this tehzeeb actually meant. And if you look at the title song of Barsat Ki Raat, I mean, I've of course written a lot about all this, but the title song of Barsat Ki Raat actually modernizes Lucknow for a Nehruvian India. The Ishq Ishq wala jo song, Na to Karwan ki Talash hai. It is an absolutely tour de force of the film, but also of what this culture means for India. So in 1960, in Nehruvian India, what is the value of the Islamicate culture? And so if there's one cinema that has actually captured it, so I'm just speaking up for Bombay cinema of the earlier region, which is of the early ages, which is where the celebration of Lucknow. So Chaudhry Ka Chand, of course, Palki. I mean, you look at all the Muslim socials of the 1940s, 60s, but also the 40s and the 50s. And it is amazing the number of films that actually are not only set in Lucknow, but actually have captured that cultural value that Mehru, you've spoken about so eloquently, and which today may, are maybe just remnants of the past, but they form our imagination. And it is, and I don't think it's only about nostalgia. I think for me, this is also a political project today, that we have to use that world and use what Lucknow was, what it represented, exactly the kind of, tolerance you're talking about, the cosmopolitanism of Lucknow. It's everything that you've talked about, to actually talk about the reasons why India needs to hang on to those values. The reason why India of today has destroyed what made India so unique and what made India a cultural, civilized and civilizational, have a cultural and civilizational value, which we so desperately need today. So just a comment, and Sandeep, I'm so intrigued. Now I'm going to look you up and please tell us where this film is going to be available, how I can watch it. And I'm very excited, and I look forward to watching the film. Thank you.
Sure. I've also made a note of Barsat Ki Raat, and I think after listening to what all you said, I should be coming back and watching all these films.
Oh, so, you must. I mean, the ending of Barsat Ki Raat, it is just, and I've just written something that will be published soon on the Qawwali, and email me and I can send you.
Maybe you can. I don't know. Are you connected to Mehru? I'd like to have a list of all those films, and then I'll try to, if you could send that to me, I would love to watch that.
I'm not connected to Mehru. I only know of Mehru. Unfortunately, I don't know her personally. I only
everyone knows Mehru. No, and as far as
exactly.
As far as,
I'm so thrilled by this conversation, and thank you so much. And I'm so looking forward to you.
Ira, I just wanted to interrupt. You see so much of Lucknow in the films of the 40s and the 50s, because so many writers, lyricists, dialogue, they went from Lucknow.
Musicians,
so they went like Naushad, Talat Mahmood, they're all from this area. Shakil Badauni,
Absolutely.
So they all went from this area, and maybe it was living in Mumbai, but being nostalgic about Lucknow, or that was their way of contributing to cinema. But I must also add that the films have also stereotyped Muslim communities and Muslim people, like the repeated characters of Johnny Walker, who's always a sidekick chewing pan, and so that is also making. Or if you watch Muzaffar Ali's Umrao Jan, you get the impression that the entire city is one fascinating brothel, which so it doesn't show you the different aspects of the city.
Correct.
It's just.
I think what I'm trying to say actually is that there are symbolic values. Of course, it's not real. I remember when I wrote the first book, The Islamic Cultures of Bombay Cinema, and I was talking to Javed Akhtar, and he was like, ये क्या है सारी फिल्में, मुसलमान ऐसे थोड़ी होते हैं, where are the poor Muslims, where are the poor, they were all very poor, and they were tailors and carpenters, उसके बारे में तो हम लोग नहीं देखते, I said, yes, that's true. I mean, you have to wait for the new wave, and there are new wave films.
Gaman shows you the taxi driver.
I told him that. I said, we have to understand what genre is, what genre cinema is. Mainstream genre cinema has a particular kind of intervention, and realist art cinema, new wave cinema, like Gaman you're talking about, and so many others.
But films like Mere Mehboob, for example, completely scarred our concept of romance for the rest of our lives, ऐसा romance नहीं होता है,
I mean, realism is not everything. थोड़ा romance भी life में होना चाहिए ना.
No, but it was so dangerously effective.
But Mere Mehboob is actually very important, because what Mere Mehboob does is that it is I'm sorry if I'm going on about it, but what Mere Mehboob does very quickly is actually to comment on the genre itself. So if you remember the ending of Mere Mehboob, and also if you remember the ending of this film with Pradeep Kumar and Meena Kumari's name will come to me. Both these films, which are from the 1960s, actually comment on the genre in the sense that this world is over. In Mere Mehboob, everybody leaves those Havelis. Ashok Kumar leaves with the woman he didn't have the guts to marry because she was a dancer. He leaves so there is a wonderful sequence in Mere Mehboob in which Rajendra Kumar talks about what Izzat actually means. And Izzat is not about Havelis and architectures and so on. Izzat is so there's a whole redefinition of humanism, of Izzat and this Tehzeeb, etc., which in terms of human values. And also this this other film which I'm talking about, and just can't remember the name, it will come back to me. At the end of it, the Haveli is burnt down, and Pradeep Kumar and Meena Kumari disappear. They disappear into just being ordinary middle class people, no longer so it's very interesting. So genre films have a different logic. So we have to also understand how they work. They work just as a lot of other things work at the level of the imagination and how we imagine the past and so on. And the romance of Mere Mehboob at the end, what we are left with are just two modern Nehruvian individuals who actually individuals where the woman has the right to choose, the person that she loved. And a film like that in 1963, or Barsat Ki Raat, I mean, in Barsat Ki Raat, have the woman eloping with her lover. I mean, in a Muslim social, a Muslim woman eloping with her lover is very radical, and that's 1960. So I'm just saying that, if we have
Muslim women in real life did that in the early 20th century.
But not in genre films, So I think that is how the cinema was intervening.
I think so. For that, we will have a different topic next time.
Okay.
We are coming to end the session. But I must congratulate, Saibal, what we started. We have basically touched everything. I mean, it's the two cities comparison, the literature of two cities, and films of two cities, the Sandeep's contribution, Mehru's contribution, and the best part, which I really liked, is the last part of the discussion with Iraji and this was actually, I must ask, with your permission over here, I find the name, but I can't see him. We have the former ambassador, Dr. Traxel, somewhere, who has basically lived the two cultures. He has basically not only, been married to a better half who is an Indian, but definitely he's experienced it. I would like to ask if he's there, would he like to end the session with his remarks, please?
Herbert has not kept his promise of visiting Lucknow.
I see.
Yeah.
Is Dr. Traxel there still?
Yes.
Manish?
I think he's there.
Is there? We can't. It's not audible, I suppose.
Get back.
Hi, Herbert.
Yeah, I don't know how to get back.
No, you are back. We can hear you.
Okay, good. I'm there. I enjoyed listening to all of you, in particular the deep knowledge of Mehru and Sandeep of Vienna and our idiosyncrasies and our positions.
I think so. With that, probably, Mr. Bose, you wanted to ask something? I mean, quickly.
Yes, very quickly.
To end the session very quickly, if you could.
I was, in fact, emboldened to make a few comments, but in view of the scarcity of time,
sir, we'll have to.
I would only ask one solitary question to Sandeep. Sandeep, I find that your greatest source of inspiration is Shmuel Wilder, Billy Wilder, because right behind you is the poster of the film Midnight in Paris. Midnight in Paris, which was directed by Billy Wilder in 2011. In fact, my favorite film was Witness for the Prosecution in 1957. And one of the inspiring factors that induced me to become a lawyer was this great film and the superb performance of Charles Lawton in that film. I think your imagery perhaps has been influenced because right behind you, I see Midnight in Paris, shot in my favorite hotel in Paris, Le Maurice in Rue Rivoli, you see, where you had characters playing Hemingway and Dali, Salvador Dali. So to what extent has Shmuel Wilder, the great Austrian director who migrated to America in 1933, influenced your filmmaking and your films?
Well, I really appreciate every time someone either in the film or, here notices something which others don't notice. So that's really.
He's right behind you, Sandeep.
I know. It's
right
like
behind you.
I saw it because of Woody Allen, and I'm a
I can see it with my turn of the century Austrian gold-plated spectacle frames, you see, that goes back to Austria. I deliberately wore that. Probably belonged to my grandfather or something. When I put it on for effects, you see.
But I saw Midnight in Paris because of Woody Allen, and I see a huge variety of films. I've got posters of different films which I kind of have seen a number of times. So it's like not just that that film influenced me, but I've seen all Woody Allen films, and I really love the way he started making his films, his way of storytelling.
Stephen Wilder and Jeff Bezos, and it's all coming together. Love that dude's accent, the best. Ooh, but Stephen Wilder and Jeff Bezos, and it's all coming together. Love that dude's accent, it's the best.
Okay.
And
Saibal, would you like to end the session?
No, I think you wrap it up. I mean, it was wonderful talking to you people, and it was, of course, I mean, I've seen the film once. I'll see it again because I'll probably write about it sometime in the future. Sandeep will let us know when it's releasing or,
I just like to say a word on it because Ira asked where she can see the film. Ira, maybe we can connect on social media because I love the way you were, excited in talking about and your knowledge about Indian films. We had a world premiere at the AFI in Goa. And we were supposed to be playing at the Biffis in Bangalore, but that's been postponed. The next we have is our Austrian premiere at the Diagonale. That's one of the biggest film festivals here in Austria, in Graz, where we are in the main competition. So I don't think they'll be having an online session for that. Okay. But I'll certainly let you know when we are playing. And I would love it if you watch it on the bigger screen, because
of course.
For me, I don't want you to watch it on the laptop.
Yeah,
because
I agree. I want to see it on the big screen. Yeah.
You need to see Mehru Jaffer on the big screen, and that's going to move you.
Yeah. No, I absolutely, and I hope I will have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, Manish, sure. I'll let you know. Let's connect. And then
one last comment, Manish. One last comment, just for a minute. As a Bengali, I feel proud that both our great Bengalis, Rabindranath Tagore and Subhash Bose, had a strong Vienna connection. In fact, Rabindranath Tagore composed his butterfly poem influenced by the Schmetterling house, the butterfly house in Vienna, and Subhash Bose met his wife. You see, met his wife, Miss Schinkel, in Vienna.
That's
was
true,
introduced
sir. I think so.
by a doctor called Dr. Mathur. That's the Vienna connection.
You missed our seminar, our webinar.
I know you told me about that. I was not free on that day. Yes.
Netaji Subhash.
I know.
You know, we were fortunate to have
Emily Schinkel. Yes, Emily Schinkel.
Well, thank you very much. With that, I think so. We'll come to an end of the session. But before that, there are a couple of thanks which really need to be deserved. But since there are so many, we don't want that anybody to be, missed out. So there is a list which we have made, and we are really fortunate that this particular session has been live, and we'll see that in future we'll have a slightly more time with a different angle and perspective of the same topic. With that, thank you very much to everybody, especially the audience who had been with us, the viewers rather. And then of course we have Sandeep from Vienna, Mehruji, and from Lucknow, Dr. Traxel sitting in Vienna. I mean, we are really overwhelmed. And thank you once again. And Saibal, thanks a lot for conducting a wonderful session. Highly obliged. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Sandeep, keep us posted about the film when it gets released in India.
Sure, I'll do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Auf Wiedersehen, everyone. Gesundheit.
And please stay safe.
Dankeschön.